One of the most important things in soils that doesn't get talked about a whole lot is organic matter. Everybody likes to focus on NP and K, and there is a fair amount of talk about soil pH anymore. We discuss drainage, we talk compaction, but you know what? If you have the right amount of organic matter in your soil, you're going to have more nutrients available. You're going to have less compaction. You're going to have better drainage. All those things are going to improve if you can improve your organic matter levels in the soil.
I think we're in a great spot here. We're right by our great-grandpa's farm, and you think about, okay, over 100 years now, our family has been on this ground. And you say, okay, well, how has that organic matter changed over that time? Well, there is a way that you can tell how the organic matter levels have changed. Go to your fence line, pull a soil sample there. The fence line's been undisturbed. There's grass that's been growing in there forever. And when we look at a fence line, our organic matter levels in this area, a lot of times, are in the 5s. Maybe they're even 6%. Somewhere in that 5 to 6% organic matter range. Out in our fields, many of them are in the 2 to 4% organic matter levels. So by our farming practices over the last 100 years, we've actually burned up some of our organic matter with our tillage, with our cropping practices. Now we're trying to build that back up. Organic matter is important for so many things that we're going to talk about today.
Okay, as far as those things it's important for, we've already discussed a few. We said compaction, it's a big issue. Think of this organic matter kind of like a cushion. It's out there in your soil and it can kind of spring back, as opposed to if it's just soil, that can get compacted together. You want some of that organic matter out there. Organic matter releases nutrients. It releases a lot of phosphorus, nitrogen, some sulfur. So it can hold nutrients, it can release them later on. It can also hold quite a bit of water. What we always tell people is roughly for every 1% additional organic matter you have 4% more water holding capacity. So let's say you had 2% organic matter versus 6%, that's 4% times 4, that's 16% more water you could hold. That's a huge deal, especially in a dry year and non-irrigated ground. In terms of other things, I mean, moving water through the soil, just having air in the soil, having better microbial activity in the soil.
That's
There's
a big
whole
one.
Big list.
You look at organic matter, and that's where a lot of that microbial life in our soil is really based around. And when you have low levels of organic matter, chances are you've got pretty low soil life levels out in your field. And it's hard to know exactly what that is, but you can sure see it in things like residue breakdown. If you've got fields where the corn stalks from 3 years ago are still laying in your field, chances are you probably have a lower level of organic matter and you've got not as much microbial activity going on under the soil as the fields where, wow, in the middle of the summer, all my residue is gone from last year. That tells me you've got a pretty healthy soil.
Okay, so I mentioned the nutrients that do get released out of that organic matter. Let me get specific here. For every 1% of organic matter you have in your soil, on average, you're going to have some mineralization out of that in the summer that amounts to 20 to 30 pounds of nitrogen, 4 to 7 pounds of phosphorus, and 2 to 3 pounds of sulfur. So that's for every 1% of organic matter. Just think if you had 7 or 8% organic matter, you've got a tremendous amount of free nutrients that are coming available for your next crop. That's an awesome thing when that happens. And you're going to have more mineralization if you have a little bit more heat. You do have the microbial activity Darren's talking about. You have at least a little bit of moisture out there. So you want to have a good healthy soil and decent growing conditions, and then you'll have more of that that'll come available.
All right, so you may be saying, hey, this organic matter sounds pretty good. How do I get more of it? And honestly, that's a big focus on our farm. We are really trying to build our organic matter levels in all of our fields because we know it's going to be a good thing for us long term. It's a good thing for the environment and for us as farmers. So one of the first things that we're doing is modifying what we're doing on tillage. Now, if you're doing heavy, deep tillage every year on your farm, it's really tough to build up organic matter levels because as you introduce oxygen into that equation, you're burning up that residue so much faster than if you were in a no-till situation. Now, we don't no-till a lot of ground on our farm. We've kind of found a happy medium where we do quite a bit of strip till. So we're only tilling where we absolutely have to, and in between the rows, we're leaving it untilled. Now, when you're thinking about that, you say, well, wait a minute, you're still doing some tillage? Yes, we are. But here's the difference. We're leaving those root masses intact from last year's crop. So in our 30-inch corn and soybean fields, we'll move over 15 inches and build our next zone there. That way we can leave the mass from, well, in this case, a soybean field, we can leave that soybean mass intact, or we can leave that corn root ball intact and just go out halfway in between the rows.
Yep, so those roots can then naturally decay and become true organic matter in the soil. So on this tillage thing, if you look at the last 100 years across the entire United States, organic matter levels have shrunk. It's due to tillage. Additional things you can do if you want to increase organic matter levels on your farm: use biological products, use some manure, and planting crops with lots of roots. For example, on average, corn has 5 times the root mass of soybeans. So on our farm in the last quite a few years now, we've raised a lot more corn than we have soybeans. Not that we don't like soybeans.
Especially on ground where we're really having a problem with organic matter.
Right.
In those situations where we've got some erosion, or we pick up a new piece of ground and the organic matter levels are really low, in those situations we're really going to focus more on a continuous corn rotation, at least for a short period of time, to try and build things back up.
Well, once again, organic matter is tremendously important in your soil. If you've got more organic matter over a long period of time, the odds are extremely high you're going to have higher yielding crops. If you want to improve organic matter levels on your farm, just reduce the tillage, plant crops with lots of roots, use some manure, and use some biological products.
Well, organic matter probably doesn't have any impact on our weed of the week. I wish it did, but we'll share what methods will control this weed coming up later in the show.